الضالين مبير الظالمين مضحك الحاضرين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني الهاشمي الذي اسمه في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المكرمين ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقتليهم وغاصب حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم ملعونين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
For the happiness of Hazrat Zahra Marziya, for the enlightenment of the graves of Yom Al-Amin and of the graves of the Shuhada and Siddiqeen, for the hastening of the reappearance of Hazrat Baqiyatullah al-A'zam, and for his safety, and for the safety of anyone around the world that says Ya Zahra, please recite aloud the salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who is Rahman and the one who is Rahim. The one who created mankind out of no need of his own, except that man may worship him. He gave mankind only one purpose, and that was to worship him, and worship him day and night. It's an honor to be here and to be able to come to this center and speak here. This is probably the first time I've spoken here, other than one other event. And it's an honor to be here. And I'm humbled in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in front of the Imam of my time, that I have been selected for such a holy task. I had prepared for some youth, however, inshallah, I'm sure they'll start to come in as and when the holidays begin. But, you know, youth, by youth, you know, it doesn't mean that, I mean young people. Everyone in this room is a youth according to the hadith of Imam al-Sadiq. Once the Imam asks one of his companions, he says, what do you think Ashab al-Kahf, the people who recite Salat?
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So the Imam asks his companion, he says, what do you think is meant when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says youth in the Quran? And the companion says to the Imam, he says that it probably means young person, because that's the word that's been used here. And the Imam says, no, surely it means the youth. When Allah refers to youth in the Holy Quran, He refers to those that fear Allah. Surely the men of Ashab al-Kahf were all old men, but because of their fear of Allah, Allah addressed them as youth. So everyone in this room is a youth, inshallah. So now that we've established that, we can continue the lecture on the basis that I am reciting to youth as well. Surah Al-Kawthar is what I've used to start today's lecture with. The smallest surah in the Holy Quran, but yet unique for so many different ways. From a grammatical point of view, when we look at this surah, we find that there are 6 words that have never been used throughout the Quran. The surah itself consists of only 11 words. 6 are totally new and have only been used in this surah. For example, the word a'tayna, the word kawthar, the word fasalli, the word wanhar, the word sha'an, and the word abtar. They have never been used throughout the Quran except within this surah. We see from this one point that this surah itself is very unique. So when we go into its depth, we are hoping to find a more unique meaning than the one that we already know. The surah, you all know it, our youngsters know it as well. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. We have bestowed upon you Kawthar. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْهَرْ. So now pray to your Lord and give the sacrifice of a camel. Pray to your Lord and give the sacrifice of a camel. Inna shani'aka huwal abtar. It is surely your enemies that will be tailless. When we look at this surah, if we take just the first word, this word of inna, Allah uses this word in two contexts within the Holy Quran. The first context is when He wants to show the importance of something. When something is very important, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this word of inna. The second context that He uses this word inna in is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala achieves His ends through secondary sources. For example, when we look at the rain, we say that the sun shines upon water, the water evaporates, turns to steam, it rises in the atmosphere, cools, forms clouds. When those clouds become heavy, it rains. At this junction, Allah would refer to it as inna, we did this. And in order to show importance, we find various surahs within the Holy Quran. Incidentally, only 4 surahs within the Quran start with this word of inna. We find it in the surah Inna Fatahna Laka Fathan Mubina. In order to describe the great victory, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this word inna. When concerning the revelation of the Quran, inna anzalna fi laylatil qadr, Allah there talks about the revelation of the Holy Quran by using this word inna. Then inna arsalna Nuhan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explaining the importance of Nabi Nuh, uses this word inna. And then this surah that we are looking at today, inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, Allah talking about this using the word inna. So those are 2 points of interest. The third point of interest that one can find is this, the one where we find that the Holy Prophet is being told to pray to Allah and give the sacrifice of a camel. Nowhere else do we find this, that he's been given something. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him that I want you now to go and sacrifice a camel. I want you to go and pray in thanks for this thing that I have given you. The first line opens up with inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Surely we have given you Kawthar. In the Arabic language, we have the word kathir, and we have the word, kathir means lots. When you give something, there's lots. Kawthar is something which is lots and lots. Lots and lots of a good thing. There is no word in English for this as a direct translation for Kawthar. But the best translation that we can find is lots and lots. Something that is unaccountable. We find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to the Prophet that I have given you this Kawthar. When we look through the Holy Quran, we find Allah calling him Rahmatan lil Alameen, but never saying to him that I have given you Kawthar. We find him calling him Siraj al-Munir, but we never find him saying that I have given you this Kawthar. Sayyidul Mursaleen, Ra'ufur Rahim, Bashir, Nazir, Taha, Yasin, Mudaththir, Muzammil. But never does he say that I have given you Kawthar. When we think over this, Ilahi, what is this Kawthar? What is this thing that you are bestowing upon the Prophet? That you are telling him to now pray to you, to give the sacrifice of a camel. That you are using the word inna to explain its importance. We look through this surah and we find the answer in the last ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising the Prophet that his message will continue, his name will continue. He is promising him that his enemies' names will finish, their message will cease. Allah is saying, I am going to do all of this through what? By giving you this Kawthar. What is this Kawthar? It is also known as Fatimatul Zahra. She is that Kawthar that was given to the Prophet, from which his descendants would keep going until the day of Qiyamah, that would keep alive his name. That is the Kawthar. And this issue of descendants has been a very, very contentious issue throughout history. Many people have opposed this concept that how is it possible that the children of Hazrat Zahra salamullah alayha can be the children of Rasulullah. And throughout, from the death of Rasulullah onwards, we find these issues arising. In fact, when we go to the time of one of the biggest tyrants, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, we find that Hajjaj himself had this issue. In Bihar al-Anwar, volume 10, we find a hadith that is centered around someone called Amir al-Sha'bi. Amir al-Sha'bi narrates, he says, I'm sitting in my house, it is the middle of the night. When there's a knock at the door, I open the door to find that the soldier of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi is standing at the door. He says, Hajjaj has called you to the palace. Amir al-Sha'bi thinks it's the middle of the night. This tyrant has called me to his palace. Surely it can't be good. This can't be good for me. So he says, I go back inside the house, I change my clothes, I do wudu, and I write my will for my children. I give it to them, and I say, I may not return. So he goes with the soldier to the palace of Hajjaj. He says, I enter into the palace where the seat of Hajjaj is. He's sitting upon his seat. In front of him is an execution mat and an execution block and an unsheathed sword. All of it is lying there. He looks at me and he calls me over. He says, come and sit with me. You have nothing to worry about. I want you to watch a spectacle with me. So he says, I went and sat next to Hajjaj. Hajjaj shouts to his slave, bring in the prisoner. Amir al-Sha'bi says, I see a man, his beard has grown, his hair is disheveled, chained from head to toe, being brought inside. With his head down, he stands in front of Hajjaj. Hajjaj says, Amir al-Sha'bi, I'd like you to adjudicate or watch this event. He says to this man, he says, you are a Shia. Prove to me, if you want to be free, prove to me that Hasanain Sharifain are the sons of Zahra, are the sons of Rasulullah through Fatima to Zahra from the Holy Quran. But you are not allowed to use the ayah of Mubahala. The first ayah that comes to mind is the ayah of Mubahala. He says no. He goes, but you cannot use the ayah of Mubahala. Find another ayah in order to prove this point. If you prove it, I will free you. If you can't, I will cut off your head. Amir al-Sha'bi says, I was Hafiz of the Quran. I began to search the Holy Quran in my mind, but could find no verse that would support this man's case. So in order to buy him some time, I said to Hajjaj, look, he's weak, just take his chains off. So Hajjaj orders for his chains to be taken off. They take off his chains, and he says, when this man raised his head, I saw that it was the companion Sa'id ibn Jubayr. And he goes, I became even more worried now for Sa'id ibn Jubayr. Now that I know him, I'm even more worried. I can't find an ayah of the Holy Quran. Again, Hajjaj places his question in front of this man, in front of Sa'id ibn Jubayr. Amir al-Sha'bi saying, I'm worried in my place. Hajjaj is pushing Sa'id ibn Jubayr to give the answer, when all of a sudden Sa'id ibn Jubayr raises his head and smiles. He begins to recite the ayah 84 of Surah Al-An'am, which begins, وَوَهَبْنَا إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. And he finishes that ayah. It is the ayah that talks about the descendants of Nabi Ibrahim. After finishing ayah 84, he turns to Hajjaj and says, Hajjaj, you finish off you start reading ayah number 85. Hajjaj continues, وَزَكَرِيَّا وَيَحْيَا وَعِيسَى. There Sa'id ibn Jubayr says, oh Hajjaj, stop. Hajjaj looks at him shocked. He says, oh Hajjaj, do you not see the point here? If Isa can be the son of Ibrahim after 27 generations through Maryam, what stops Hasanain Sharifain being the sons of Rasulullah through Fatima to Zahra? These are the Shias of Al Muhammad. These were issues that were presented throughout history. In fact, later on, you have stories concerning people like Harun al-Rashid. Because when Banu Abbas came to power, now they had a different claim. And they were claiming that we actually are the Ahlul Bayt, we are the children of Rasulullah, because our uncle Abbas, great grandfather, he was the uncle of the Prophet. Thus, we are closer to the Holy Prophet. And the Ahlul Bayt, as we know them, the Imams, are the sons of Ali. Yeah, the sons of Ali. So Harun comes to Medina, he sees loads and loads of people there. He comes to the grave of the Holy Prophet. And in a loud voice he says, Assalamu alayka yabna al-am. Oh, my salams be upon you, my cousin. And they say at the time Imam al-Kadhim was there in the vicinity as well. Hearing what Harun says, Imam also approaches the grave of the Prophet and he addresses the Prophet. He says, Assalamu alaykum, oh my father. Loud enough so that Harun can hear. Harun stops and turns to the Imam in an angry way and says, how is he your father? How is he your father? You are the son of Ali. The Imam, instead of arguing with Harun, poses a question to him. Says, Harun, if the Prophet was to be resurrected today and was to come to you and say, I want to marry your daughter, would you let him? Harun says, yes, of course. You wouldn't. Of course I'd give my daughter to the Holy Prophet. He can marry her. I would be the father-in-law of the Holy Prophet. Yes, I would. Imam looks at him and says, Harun, I would not give my daughter to the Prophet, nor would he ask. Harun says, why? Imam al-Kadhim says, this is the difference between me and you, Harun. Your daughter can be married to the Holy Prophet, but it is haram for my daughters to be married to the Prophet, for my daughters are his daughters. This same concept continuing over and over throughout history, and you can find these countless examples throughout the lives where Ahlul Bayt have defended this claim. So the first, going back to the original point, is that she is Kawthar. She is that, a gift that was bestowed upon the Prophet. She is Zahra, the illuminated one. Once someone came to the sixth Imam and they asked him, they said, how is it that your grandmother was given this title of Zahra? And the Imam says she was called Zahra because when she used to stand in the mihrab to pray, the nur from her would illuminate the heavens like the stars illuminate the earth. And then we have other riwayat concerning it. From the Imams talking about before creation, that time prior to creation. They say that there was a time when God had created the angels, but the angels were in darkness. They were in darkness. By darkness, it means that they were in confusion or they lacked knowledge. And in order to guide them towards the light, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the light of Sayyidah Fatima sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. These were the nurs within the heavens. Today was just an introduction as to who is this personality. Inshallah, from tomorrow we'll go in and we'll start to assess that khutbah al-Fadaqiyya that Bibi gives in the court of Abu Bakr, where she stands and she claims her right from him, and we'll go into the depth and see exactly where she's going and what lessons we can take from that khutbah. But today, what lesson can I take? It's great that I hear the fada'il of Ali Muhammad. It's great that I hear the fada'il of Sayyidah Fatima. It's great that I feel good and I do salawat and all of these things, but what can I take in my life? What can I change? By looking at the seerah of these people, by hearing what they recommended us to do. Let's try and make one change within our lives. On this night, make that intention that we will change one thing within our life. Let's take something simple. Or we perceive it as simple, but it's not actually simple. When we sit after salah and we read that tasbih known as tasbih Fatima. That tasbih that we do, very quickly, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, as quick as I can because I've got to start my second namaz. And that tasbih, according to the sixth Imam, do you know what he said about that tasbih? He says, tasbih Fatima fi kulli yawm. That the tasbih of Fatima to Zahra every day. Fi dabbari kulli salat. At the end of every namaz, the tasbih of Fatima, at the end of every namaz, every day, أحب إلي من صلاة ألف ركعة في يوم. That tasbih of Fatima, after every namaz, every day, is more dear to me than 1,000 rakats of namaz. And this isn't any normal namaz. This is the namaz of Imam as-Sadiq. This is the namaz of the Imam. The 1,000 rakats recited by the Imam, they're not the 1,000 rakats recited by a sinner like me, who probably won't even reach 1,000 rakats, doesn't have the stamina to do 1,000 rakats a night. These are the 1,000 rakats of the Imam, the one with 1,000 alhamds, the one with 1,000 qul huwallahs, 3 qul huwallahs equal a completed Quran, 1,000 qul huwallahs, 333 completed Qurans, the one with 2,000 sujood. That salah to one side and the tasbih of Fatima to Zahra to one side. If I can implement that within my life, unlock its secrets, and inshallah, my time's running out, so we'll talk about it more tomorrow as to how we can unlock its secrets and what in reality have the scholars told us about this tasbih. What is it? Yes, it is a way that we can get our hajat answered, our dua answered, but it has another side to it. These are the days when we have to try and understand who this personality was. Try and follow her example. Try and implement what she did in her life. Each and every one of us, brothers and sisters included, there is something for all of us to take from her life. There is something. In fact, our Imam, the Imam of our time, there is a hadith from him, Arwahun al-Fida. He says concerning Sayyidah Fatima, he says, Inna li fi ibnati Rasulillah uswatun hasana. He says, in the example, in the life of the daughter of the Prophet, for me is a great example. For me is a guide. He talks about himself in the life of the daughter of the Holy Prophet. For me is an example. For me is the best of examples, the best of guides. So what about me? My Imam follows her. Do I follow her? Do I implement those changes, those things that she told me to do in my life? Or is my life just the same? The shahadat comes, it goes, and I'm just the same. There's no change within me. There's no revolution within me. Muharram comes, Muharram goes, I am the same. Ayyam-e Fatimiyya come, Ayyam-e Fatimiyya go, and I am the same. take the message of Sayyidah Fatima. The reason why the ulama stress so much on these days, it is recommended that you do 14 days of mourning for Sayyidah Fatima. 14 days. Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani in one of his lectures told the people for 14 days, 2 weeks, continued the musibah of Sayyidah Fatima, so that the world asks you why, what's happened to her that you are mourning her for so much, for so long. For Muharram you do 10 nights, but yet for this lady 14 nights. Highlight her cause, highlight her musibah. Remind the people what's happened to her. Tell them why the daughter of the Holy Prophet, just a few days after his death, was found at his grave reciting a madhiyah saying, صُبَّتْ عَلَيَّ مَصَاحِبٌ لَوْ أَنَّهَا صُبَّتْ عَلَى الْأَيَّامَ سِنَّ لَيَالِهَا. Addressing her father, she says, "Oh my father, the sorrows that I have seen after your death, if they were placed upon the brightest of days, surely they would have become the darkest of nights." Tell the world what happened to her, that she is there next to the grave of her grandfather and next to the grave of her father, weeping and saying that if it had fallen upon the brightest of days, surely it would have turned to the darkest of nights. But I sat thinking about this marthiyah of Sayyidah Fatima at the grave of her father, and my mind wandered to Karbala, to the marthiyah of her daughter. And when I compared the two marthiyahs of mother and daughter, I found a number of similarities between them. The first is that both Sayyidah Zainab and Sayyidah Fatima are addressing Rasulullah. The second is that both of them are telling Rasulullah about their sorrows. And the third is that with both of them, Imam al-Hussein is with them. But there are certain differences. Fatima recited her marthiyah in the mosque of the Prophet. Zainab was in the burning plains of Karbala. Fatima had her hand by her side, or some say one hand was upon the rib where she had been crushed. Between the wall and the door, Zainab's hands were tied around her neck. Fatima had hijab upon her head. She had her near and dear ones near her. Zainab, her hijab was removed. And how did they remove it? With spears. On horsebacks they chased the daughters of Ali and Fatima, and they removed their hijabs. The other difference is that Imam al-Hussein was with Bibi Fatima. Yes, he was there in the flesh, and he was there as well with Bibi Zainab, but the state is different. When Zainab is reciting her masa'ib, yes, she is addressing Rasulullah. She says, "Ya Jadda, salli alayka malikatu sama." Oh my grandfather, the angels of the heavens would come and send salams upon you. وَهَذَا حُسَيْنُكَ مُرَمَّلٌ بِالدِّمَاءِ. And here lies your son Hussein, covered in his own blood. مُقَتَّعُ أَحْضَاء, his body cut to pieces. مَسْلُوبُ الْعَمَّامَةِ وَالرِّدَاء, and his ammama and his clothing have been stolen from his body. There is one other difference. Fatima went back home after reciting her madhiyah, but Zainab sits in the place of Karbala and she says, وَبَنَاتُكَ السَّبَايَا. Oh my grandfather, your daughters are being taken captive to Karbala, from Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. Pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of our parents. Oh Allah, those of our parents that are alive, give them long lives. Oh Allah, those of our parents that have left this world, give them a place next to Muhammad in Jannah. Oh Allah, those who are in debt, clear their debts. Oh Allah, those who are ill, give them shifa'ah. Oh Allah, those who are in education, make them successful. Oh Allah, keep our ulama and our maraji at the head of our institutions. Oh Allah, keep safe the Shias of Ali Muhammad wherever they are, especially the Shias of Bahrain and Saudi. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time. Allow us to be amongst his true muntadhireen. For the acceptance of these du'as and any other du'as that the brothers and sisters have brought to the majlis, please recite 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.